So this pond goes back to, I think, early 1820, when there was actually a flax mill here, and down through the years it kind of got forgotten about. It was overgrown, so we cleaned it up last year and created this little path in. We took the big stones that were on the middle of the field, probably from the Ice Age, because they weigh like a ton or two, and we created a little Stonehenge. So we're here at the pond at Oakley Park, about 2 miles north of the town of Kells, out the Moynalty Road, and we're not too far from Trim, and we're not too far from Newgrange, the Hill of Tara. Of course, Meath was the royal county in Ireland, and the Hill of Tara had the big fire every year, in the solstice, the high day of summer on June 21st and December 21st, the winter solstice. So Oakley Park was 744 acres when George Bomford moved up from Summerhill, County Meath, and he bought this place in 1836. Moved in here with, at that time they had 4 kids, and they ended up with 11 children, half boys and almost half boys, half girls. And the Bomfords improved this place a lot. They, of course, all the generations, the Crawfords were here before them for 99 years. The Bomfords ended up being here for 118 years, up until 1954. But every family that came planted trees, restored, built, put their mark on the place, going back. So we're only, my wife and I were the Kyo's, we're only the 4th owners since 1641. So, our predecessor 3 families averaged 98 years per family. So we're going into our 3rd year. I hope we last 100 years, and I hope my kids do take it on and continue the process. This was the lower yard at Oakley, and this was a beautiful cow byre that had arched doors. I think there was like 8 arches. I have a photo of it from the 1960s. It was one of those aerial photos. So it existed here until the 70s. I don't know why it collapsed, but I have the photo. We have the back wall and the end wall, so we will rebuild it exactly as it was. That's phase 5 of our plans. So it's amazing, a place like Oakley Park. I've been here now for 2 years, on and off, and you see things in different seasons. So this time when it came last week, I took a walk around, and because it's winter and everything is fallen back, I discovered this. Here you had some sort of an oven fireplace, and you look, you're in here, there's a chimney here that goes up, and it took the heat around the perimeter of the walled garden. And the inside of the walled garden is lined with brick, because brick conducts the heat and holds the warmth. So it's amazing to think that the Georgians were able to manipulate the climate in the walled garden and create this microclimate to produce vegetables and be self-sufficient. There was no super value. You had to grow it. And they grew everything. It's incredible. But they were able to manipulate the climate with these walled gardens. And this is one of the little tricks where they heated and they created this warmth, especially in the winter months, I suppose. We're in the walled garden here at Oakley Park, and it was built in Black 1847. George Bomford at that time was High Sheriff of County Meath, and he employed a lot of people to build this garden. It's almost 3 acres. Most of the wall is still standing. The inside is completely lined with brick, and it has the original capstone, which are like 3 feet wide. You can imagine how this was, from 1847 to the turn of 1900, where they literally produced everything in this garden. You still have all of these apple trees. They've been ignored. I'd say they've been ignored for 80 years, and they still produce perfect apples. I was here during the summer, and it was incredible. They were laden down with apples, and nobody pays any attention to it. And year after year, they produce. So it reminds me of Paddy Kavanagh. On an apple-ripe September morning, through the mist-chill field he went, with a pitchfork on his shoulder, less for use than for devilment. The thrashing mill was set up in Bomford's Haggard last night. We owed them a day at the thrashing since last year. Oh, sure, it was a delight to be paying bills of laughter, the chaffy gossiping kind, with work turned into ballast, the fantasy story mind. As he crossed the wooden bridge, he looked down at the drain. If ever a summer's morning might find us shoving up eels again, and he thought of the wasp's nest in the bank, and how he got chased one day, leaving a drag and a screw knife behind, and we covered his face with hay. The wet leaves of the poxfoot will polish his boots as he went around by the glistening bog holes, lost in unthinking joy. I'll be carrying bags today, he said, the best job at the mill, with plenty of time to speak of her loves as we wait for the bags to fill. Maybe Ma might call around. And then he came to the Haggard gate, and he knew as he entered he had come through fields that are part of no earthly estate. I found some photos in the attic of the lodge. They were little 2-inch by 3-inch miniatures that I enlarged and enhanced. There's a photo of these yew trees. The photo is probably 1920 and they look exactly as they do today. So in 1920 they were fully mature, so they must have been planted around 1790. We know that the lime trees, the Tilia cordata, on the back of the wall garden were planted in 1794, because that's when the son of the Crawfords, Joseph Crawford, married Harriet Rowling from Mayprat Estate over there, and the two families then being merged through marriage, they decided to build a road from Oakley Park Yard that ran around the back of the walled garden, and it followed the river, which is the Borav River, is the old name for the river. The people here call it the Moynalty River, but it's the Borav really, and it goes all the way to the Mayprat Estate. So you can imagine that road, and they planted those lime trees. On the other side of the wall, it's more impressive than it is on this side, because it has the trees and it has the sunset over there. Coming here in the summer and seeing the sunset back there, it's like you're on an avenue in Paris. It's unbelievable. Some, old-time experts here, like Thomas Packingham from Tullynada Castle, Sir David Davies, and I've showed them this post with this circular eye and this recess, and if you look through it, it lines up exactly with a brick semicircular arch on the wall. And what's really crazy is that semicircular brick detail is also on the other side of the wall. And nobody can figure out what it was or what the purpose was. So it's a mystery. Most of the oak trees here at Oakley Park were felled in the 1950s, but somehow this sequoia tree survived. We know it was planted on October 28, 1868, on George Bomford's birthday. And it would have been a sapling brought back from India by one of his brothers who was serving in the British Army in India at the time. But it has survived. I think it's the only sequoia around Kells. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's almost 200 years old. So here we're at the monkey puzzle tree, planted in 1864. So one of the Bomford family members who served in India, in Jaipur, in the northern part of India, again brought this back as a sapling and planted it back then. It's an amazing size and scale, but what's really cool, the base has almost got this Victorian crinoline dress shape, bell shape to it, and all of these are seeds that have grown around. There's like 60 individual small ones that create this apron around it, but just an evergreen. It's always green, it never changes its color, it's look all year long. And it's a Tawny boyo. It is like razor. So even the poor old monkey couldn't figure out how to climb this tree. So when George and Arabella moved in 1836, the first thing they did was add this entire addition to the front of the old house, which was built in 1715. We think they finished it in 1839 because there's receipts of all the furniture that was bought, so indicates that when they completed. What's odd is we have a floor plan of the basement and the second floor. We even have a cross-section view, transit view going through the bifurcating stairs, but we don't know who the architect was, which is intriguing because I've been looking to see where I'm going to find houses with the same details. There's quite a few, but the one unique here is the front gates coming into Oakley Park. I haven't seen slightly pyramided quadrifoil shaped piers of that same style. I haven't seen one. So whenever I find one with that, I've probably found the same architect. This stone was quarried down outside of Navan, we believe, in a quarry that's long since closed. And it is a limestone. Ironically, I'm in the limestone business in Florida. My company is Haifa Limestone, so we bring limestone from all over the world. And this has stood the test of time. So you're almost 200 years here. In the next 10 years, this will have 200 years of winters and freezing and weather. And it's really humbling when you think there was no electricity for another 100 and some years. And all of this was chiseled with a hammer and a chisel, and the precision of the columns, like they're fluted. This is actually a Greek revival. A lot of people say, George, but it's truly Greek revival architecture. And the fluting of the columns and the taper, you have the Tuscan capital, you have the box dental detail, the steps are all original, the window casings and the entablature, even the fascia itself is all stone and a piece of wood. Then you have the cast iron gutters with the lion heads cast that are in perfect shape. But if you come in and see the heat, it's amazing for me, being a stone geek, to see that the block was carved one piece all the way out. So this is one solid piece. Today, we would put a 45-degree seam here, and we would put a vertical seam here, because we'd have three pieces, which would be one third of the price of doing the whole block. But it would never stand the test of time. It would never last the 200 years. And this is going to be here another 200 years. It's in perfect shape. And it hasn't weathered. Look at the detail of the bullnose and the little recess in the OG. I mean, it's very intricate. And you even have the chase details of the chisel, horizontal chase detail, still visible today. So we just received a set of plans like about a year and a half ago, a house that we just completed in Long Beach, at Georgian, and it has the exact same vernacular and detail. It has the same fluted columns where the fluting goes all the way to the bottom without a base, which is really, really the pure Greek Revival way. So this is the lad I took around the gallop there today, and he opened up to a full gallop. Sputnik is his name. He goes like Sputnik too. He's 4.5-year-old, so that's a horse is fully grown. He's probably about 16 hands, but he's not fully filled out. He'll fill out in the next couple of years. Still a young horse. There's been horses here forever. The Bomfords were big hunters. And in fact, they had their own pack of hounds here. Francis Bomford had his own pack of hounds from about 1860 to 1890. So the hunt in the season would have been here all season long. And up until 1936, they hosted the Mead Hunt Ball here at Oakley Park. The reason 1936 was the last one, I read a story in Joan Davis Bomford's diary. The house was full, the drawing room was full, and they were doing the polka and all these dances, and didn't the floor give way? Because the basement at that time, probably needed jacking up. So, of course, that's not going to stop a hunt ball. They'll simply move everybody out of the drawing room into the main hallway, and the party went on until the wee hours of the morning. So here's where the tennis court was back in the Bomford days. I have a really wonderful picture of George Lyndon Bomford with the old push mower and one of the kids on it, probably from the 1920s or the 1930s. So tennis was interesting then. They would have tennis parties, and the neighbouring families and the neighbouring estates in the summer months, they would all come and play tennis and have lunch and have a lawn party. So many a social gathering was on this little square patch here on the old tennis court. This is the old well that they drew water from for the house, and it's in the garden that connects the house to the yard. And it actually has water, so it's still, oh wow, it's still full of water down there. See that? Here's where we dug out, and this was all buried, Alan. Look at the stone there. Look at the way it's worn from people walking out for generations. Man needs a boot. Look across that, back and forth to the yard. It was buried. It was up to here with, everything was this high with dirt. We dug out this whole area, was completely buried. So in 1954, when they knocked down the back of the house, they just threw everything into the basement and let it grow over. This is the only part of the old castle that survives. We're not sure the date of this, but it's probably maybe 14th, 15th century. It could be older. But there was a castle here, and there's the tunnel. If you go in here, you can see the tunnel. And it still has the original cobblestones. It just must have been some kind of a connection from the yard through the basement, and this was blocked up. I'm trying to figure out a use for this. that would make sense. Haven't figured it out yet, but we'll come up with something. So this whole range is in the basement of the original house that was built in 1715. So it's amazing to see, you know, the oven, the size of the ovens. I'm critiquing because I like to cook. The amount of ovens they have, I don't know, just this would have been state of the art in 1715. It really would have been state of the art way it's tiled. And you can see the some kind of an eagle logo here. I'm not sure, you know, not sure how to restore this, but we're going to bring this room back to the whole entire basement is going to be restored. So we figured out what rooms based on window and light, what makes sense. So this is going to be, we're going to have 2 bedrooms down here, a kitchen, a laundry room, a TV room, a billiard room, and a gym. So it'll be a fully, you know, comprehensive residence down here. You don't need to go upstairs. You could live down here. It'd be quite fun. Now that we've opened up the light wells, we have windows and light on both sides coming in. So it'll be fun to bring this back to life. It was buried since 1954, so it was buried for 70 years. And we dug it all out, as crazy as we are. So we're in the basement. And funny enough, when we first came to look at Oakley Park, nobody said anything about a basement. It wasn't mentioned, it wasn't listed. I was completely forgotten about and semi-buried. And so when I walked through and discovered the basement, it was a bonus. And the real bonus was finding this room, which was, I can only imagine the wine that the Bomfords had here. I'm sure the finest Bordeaux from the 1830s, 1840s, 1850s, 1860s. And in the history books, there was only one man who had a key. George Bomford himself was the only man with the key to the store. But it's beautifully vaulted. It's actually right under the front hall. And this, the way they built the niches, I see in a lot of old Georgian homes. Down in Ballyfin, in Laois, it's almost exactly the same. The depth, the brick, the color of the brick. So I think they probably put in wood separations into each one. I imagine, maybe not. I don't. Maybe they just stacked the wine in there. But this one goes, you know, back quite deep. So I put my family coat of arms on the wall temporarily to give it a home. My wife rejected it for upstairs, so it's relegated to the basement. But it'll be fine. So the Kyo coat of arms, you have the lion for strength, the crescent moon, enlightenment, and the hand of friendship. Probably goes back, you know, to the 12th century, I would imagine. Normans. But it hasn't changed. Down in the basement here at Oakley Park, and there's all of these names penciled on to the wall, the housekeepers, and some of them have a date. There's lots of Rileys and Dailies, and you can see that really, you know, of course the handwriting was beautiful, and they're all written on here. Back in the day, 10 people lived here in the basement, so you would have had the cooks, the lady's maid, the butler, you would have all of the different people that made aristocratic living and daily life possible. And over on this wall, there's more recent. Here's Philip Davis. So Philip is the son of Joan Davis, who wrote the diaries in that book, and he was here in 2024, so that's recent. And here's a frank from 1922. Here's Turk, the 24th of March, 1938. This one's 1951. It's Catherine, something from Dun Shaney Hills, County Meath. So all of these, every room has a base, has a fireplace. And even the basement has 9-foot ceilings. So when we dug it out, the dirt had come in, that window had rotted, and this was all dirt that we dug up for the last 70 years. It's amazing how it survived. And it does not have any dry rot. It does have a few issues that we're going to fix. But overall, it's in good shape. So there must have been some ventilation. I think the fact that the house is on a hill, and you'll see there's drains at the bottom of the light well that took the moisture away. So normally it wouldn't have survived, been buried. It would be damp. So it's really unique that it's in as good a shape as it's in. So there's a good story. Joan Bomford, who was born here in 1917, and she wrote us a little account of one of her early childhood memories when she was probably about 5 or 6 years old. It was St. Patrick's Day, and her dad brought her down to the basement, and she was on his shoulders, and there was a ceilidh in this hallway in the middle of the basement, and there was fiddlers and accordion and spoons, and there was dancing, and she never forgot it, and she wrote a very detailed description of her memory of that ceilidh and all the 10 people who lived in the basement, all the servants who lived in the basement, because the family, of course, back then, or the kids of the aristocrats rarely set foot in the basement. So to go down was a unique, there was a whole world, there was a whole life, there was a whole different ball game in the basement with the local families, all 10 of them that lived there. So Joan Bomford wrote when she was a teenager a story about when she was young. At Christmas, her 2 brothers took her on the pony and trap over before Christmas to get holly off a tree. So of course they left her in the trap and they were up cutting the holly. A big branch of holly came down and landed on the pony's butt. Of course spooked him. He took off. The old man, George Lyndon Bomford, was out front here, saw the pony coming galloping. Of course she was lying flat in the pony trap, and he came down here full whack, came through here, galloped through the archway going into the yard full speed, and ran straight into that stable there, leaving the trap and the harness and everything bounced off the wall. And here he was in the stable when her dad ran into the yard. He's looking out and the trap is smashed, and his daughter, she was probably 5 or 6 years old, not a bother on her. She was lying in there perfect. But can you imagine the father seeing that unfold? And the way she told the story in great detail, coming through this at full whack and straight into he went to his little stable. So we're in the yard here at Oakley Park. It was built in 1820, which would have been 10 years before the Crawfords. And this was the carriage house. So you have the 3 carriage houses here, and on the corner here was the coachman's house where he lived. Of course, he was in charge of transportation. That was a full-time commitment on that. And then over on this side of the yard here, we had the steward's house, where he was the boss of all the staff in the house and the yard, which would have been probably about 20 people at least. There was 3 generations of Rileys that lived in there, and I think it was lived in up until about the 1940s. It's going to be restored. It's actually in pretty good shape. It's 2 stories and has great height, so we're gonna the back of the house is going to become the front of the house when we finally get it fixed up. But the yard is amazing. It has a beautiful scale, and you have the combination of brick and the stone field work. You have the arches over, and even the detail on the coach houses. You have the recess with the arch, so the door is recessed flush with the front of the stonework. When I have to build doors and put them back on there, you kind of see with that black one that is not original, but at least it was put in properly. But the scale of the yard is fabulous. It has a really charming warmth to it. It has the wall, and of course it has the beautiful arched gate, which I'm amazed how that survived with all the tractors and machinery in the last 50, 60 years. So it's actually standing there, and the gates and everything work. It really is in perfect shape. So miraculously, it survived somehow. Another curiosity, when I bought Oakley Park, I didn't know what to make of this. Concrete poured with the 4 holes on both sides. And Dolly McGuinness explained this to me. Built in 1919 by the British, when Oakley Park had all the British troops, 100 or 250 of them, camped out in the yard and around the house. They built this for security, so this would have manned the road to Kells and a clear shot down the road to Moynalty. They nicknamed them pillboxes, and it's exactly in perfect shape. It was kind of just raw poured concrete, and amazing that it was not knocked down, it was kept. It's still here. I think I want to do a little commemorative plaque on here to explain it. But at that time, the aristocracy were very nervous because homes were getting burnt down all over Ireland. I think somewhere in the range of 400 homes were burnt to the ground. And one night, sure enough, they were waiting for them to show up. So one evening, they tell the story, the kids were terrified, the women were terrified. A bunch of lads showed up in front with the torches, ready to burn the place down. But George Bumford was well known and he knew them all. So the lads that showed up, he actually knew one of them and talked to them and chatted them up, brought them out some drink. Then he brought them in, fed them, and entertained them the whole night. And of course, they spent the night. The next morning, they got up. He gave them breakfast and some booze to take with them, and off they went. And they didn't burn the house down. So that's how Oakley Park survived 1921, or 1920 or 21. That would have been. But George was very well liked, and he was one of the few houses that was not burnt down. Yeah. So when we bought the house one day, my wife says, there's a gentleman, older gentleman, with a tweed jacket and a hat walking around out there. And I says, well, go invite him in. And she went out and opened the door, introduced herself, and of course he came in, and he was a wealth of information. So I asked him, I says, what happened in 1955 when the back got demolished? And he said to me, well, it was all going to get demolished that day. The whole thing was gone. And he said, my father talked to Lawrence McGuinness and said to him, what are you doing? He says, well, I'm going to build a bungalow out in the front field out here. And he said to him, well, why don't you keep the front half of what you have and forget the bungalow? This is already built. You don't have to build a bungalow. And he says, yeah, just that's not a bad idea because I'm tight on money anyway. And like it was literally the hour of demolition, and he said to the guy, knock the back, which was built in 1750, which came all the way back to here, which was more than half of the house. It was more than 60% of the house got demolished that day. And he kept the part that was built in 1936 that George and Arabella Bamford built, which was the addition to the original house. That's what he kept, and that's what's here today. I grew up outside a multi-farm in Lough Derbar, and on a farm, so we had everything. We farmed everything, and great place to grow up. I have 5 sisters, 2 brothers. Amazing childhood there. Farming, wildlife, hunting, shooting, fishing, sports, football, hurling, handball. I mean, we did it all. It was an incredible place to grow up. I mean, I didn't, you don't realize it when you're in it, but when you travel the world and you see how other people live, you look back and say, wow, I had a pretty charmed, youth. But so when I was, it's really kind of corny, but when I was like 12 and 13, I was obsessed with Dallas, that show, that TV show, Texas, the oil, J.R. Ewing, and that was kind of my first inkling of America, And then, I went through secondary school, and Dad wanted me to take over the farm. I'm the youngest son, and so he kind of pushed me to go to agricultural college. But when I did my Leave Insert that year, I had an opportunity to go to America to play football. And I had an uncle and an aunt in Cleveland. My Uncle Oliver and Aunt Rosaline, amazing couple. They were like so good to me. And I came home from school that spring and I said to Mother, I want to go to America for the summer. And she was kind of shocked. And what are you going to do? I says, well, I don't worry, I got lots I can do. I can work, I can travel, I can play football. I got Oliver and Rosaline, and that made her feel better. So I went. And I had the most amazing summer that year. I worked in a landscaping company. I remember they paid me $4 an hour cash. And we worked. It was a hot summer. I was as brown as a berry when I came home. Played football. Every weekend we'd go to Pittsburgh, Philly, Milwaukee, everywhere, Chicago, and we'd play football and then come home on Sunday. I'd work during the week. So the summer went by. I came back then and I did go to college, agriculture school for a year. But I was hooked. And the whole time I'm in ag college, I was thinking about America and I wanted to be there, in the future. So I knew I was wasting my time at ag college and went through the year. My mother remembers the day I came home on February 27, 1987. And I was coming from school, I was running up the stairs, and she says, that Stewart guy from America called again. And the shuttle blew up. It was the day the Challenger blew up. And I thought of the teacher who was in that because she was nominated the summer I was in Cleveland. She was from the Midwest. And so I called Stewart and he said, this was after my second summer out there. I had a friend who sent me to Florida, to Palm Beach, for a week before I went back to school. So I discovered Palm Beach and I met this guy, Stewart. And he wanted me to go out and work with him. But I had to finish school and I told him I can't leave until the final exam. But the day after the final exam, I got on a plane and I flew out. And I remember my brother-in-law, Kevin Garrity, was looking at me that day at the airport. He's like, you don't have a job. You don't know where you're going. You don't know what you're going to do. Like, what's the plan? And I says, well, I really don't have a specific plan, but I know I'm going to do fine. And so I just had this thing. America was this freedom. There was nobody looking over my shoulder. There was nobody judging. I could use my creativity. And right away I fell into a business where it was architectural because I could draw. I could do drafting by hand. I could draw. I could visualize. So I was able to design and create. And immediately I hit the ground running and I was working 7 days a week. 16-hour days, 7 days a week. And it was fabulous. I loved it. And at the same time I was playing football. We would train 2 nights a week. And that's where I met a couple of guys. That first year, the second year, 1988. And afterwards we went to a pub and we realized that we had something in common. They had done theater and they had done acting. So we sat there in the Harp and Piper in Pompano Beach and we're like, why don't we start our own theater group? 1988. And we did. We called it the Innisfree Theater Group. And we would do a play in the fall and one in the spring. And I did that until I got married in 1999. And we'd always do Irish theatre, Irish plays, and it was all guys and girls from Ireland. So it was the real deal. And we would go we would perform in Fort Lauderdale, Boca, West Palm, Miami, for about a week, and then we were done because we all had lives and jobs and careers. But, you know, it was great. I worked hard, super ambitious, super hungry, creative. I mean, when I left, I remember I had exactly $300, £300, all pounds, to my name. I had no green card, I had no driver's license, I had no credit card, but I had crazy hungry work ambition. I mean, I was an animal when it came to, you know, I was just driven, like, you know, kind of crazy ambition. I was extreme. I was totally extreme. I took risks. I took a lot of risks business-wise, like insane risks. But you know what? I said, you know what? I had nothing. I had $300 to begin with. So what? If I lose it, I'm back to $300 and I'll start over again. So I really didn't care. I wasn't afraid of failing. I wasn't afraid of failing, and I did fail on a lot of things. I lost a lot of money on many deals, but you just plow ahead, you know, and you have to take the risk, you have to take the plunge, and that was never a problem for me. I was always taking risks and jumping in the deep end and doing what, but the key was, though, I was lucky enough to hit on a discipline which was the stone business, which involved design, selling, dealing with the best architects in the world, dealing with the most incredible clients, because our clients were mostly from New York and coming down the Midwest and whatnot. So we're talking about a level of affluence that is like insane. You know, they're billionaires, or most of them are worth at least several hundred million. So they're building their third or fourth home in Palm Beach, and it's the showpiece. So we've come into the picture where we can deliver a product and an aesthetic and a level of service from the quarry through design, fabrication, install, restoration, maintenance, because we have a team of 80 people and we do the entire process all the way through. Which was really fun for me because it was always, you had that tangible result of seeing something created, that I literally had to go find the quarry, find the blocks all over the world, 20 different countries, bring them to America, design it, cut it, put it in, and then you see it, you know, at a party, or you go there and see the finished product, or in a magazine, and just very, very rewarding type of business I fell into. Well, it's interestingly enough, I would say back in 2017 or 18, my son Milo downloaded an app on my phone, which was radio shows in Ireland. It was one of those, I forget what it was called. But anyway, because he downloaded this on my phone, when I went in the morning, I'm in the gym, I began to listen to Irish radio. And there was a show, KCL in Kilkenny, that was really, really fun and interesting. And then, of course, there was, you know, Pat Kinney and whatnot. And it would bounce back. And then I'm listening to it in the gym, and then I'm listening to it in the shower, and then I'm listening to it when I'm driving on the way to work. And I'm hearing the stories again of what's going on in Ireland and the characters. And then I'm beginning to see, I suppose that it began to link me with properties, and I see these properties popping up, and I was looking at this property and that property, and I was romanticizing, you know, and I'm looking at them, and this went on for like 2 years or 2.5 years. And I was like, oh, my wife is gonna kill me if I tell her I wanna buy a house in Ireland or a place in Ireland. But funny enough, when I found a place that I liked and I showed it to my wife, she was super excited because she's an interior designer and she loves Georgian. And so she was like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. And so it took a while to find a place, but we found the perfect place. And the crazy thing about this is the farm that I grew up on, Balnakill, on the shores of Loch Derribara, was owned by the Bomfords from 1799 until 1860. And it was an Oliver, a John, and a Henry. And fast forward to 1844, a son, Augustine Gus Bomford, was born. And he was the heir to Balnakill, being the son. And in his teenage years, he had a romance with a Catholic girl and fell in love with this Catholic girl, which caused a whole ruckus. He was going to be disinherited. Of course, she was Catholic, the Bomfords were Protestant. And the story goes that he got into an altercation with a British trooper in the village and beat him up. And then the trooper actually died. So in a panic, he grabbed Catherine, Druggan, the girlfriend, and left up to Dublin, jumped on a boat, went to New York, landed in Brooklyn. And he went on then. He was a boxer, he was a fighter, and he was drafted into the Civil War then right away in 1860, and he actually fought in Gettysburg. So I didn't know this when I first saw Oakley Park until I was in the process of buying it, and Maura mentioned to me, the seller, that this was, there was a lot of history to Oakley Park and the Bomford family, and it still didn't ring a bell. And so I'm back at work in Palm Beach a week later, and I just, on a Saturday afternoon when things calmed down, I Googled the Bomfords, and of course Oakley Park comes up, and it turns out there's like 1,000 pages written by Peter Bomford, who was a teacher here in Kells. He was the last Bomford here. And as I read through it then, I see the history and the connection to Balnakill. So they were cousins, essentially. So it ended up being very serendipitous, the whole thing. The fact that, Balnakill was a Bomford estate and Oakley Park was the, Bomford estate for the Bomfords in this area. So that was kind of like freaky, and above all the places, and I didn't even know, it just kind of came about. And I was like, wow, and everything about it, like the people I bought it from are the most wonderful people, great neighbors. There's a great energy about this place. It's like, it's just, I've never felt more at home anywhere in my life. Even Balnakill, where I was born and raised, doesn't have the energy that Oakley Park does. And it has so much good history and positive history, and it's so rich, and it's got, there's so many things that are special about it. It's like, it's really my happy place. There's no doubt about it. Well, it's very serendipitous. It's very deep, and it's just like a belonging. It's a really, really crazy thing. It's all Milo's fault when he got me that damn app on my phone 3 years ago. It's amazing how one thing leads to another, and one thing leads to another, and here we are. But there's things I like. I love horses. I love hunting. I love riding. I love the land. I love the architecture. I love the scale of the place and the vista and the entrance of this place. I love the yard down there. The yard has so much character, from the 1820s. Anybody could build a yard, but you can't build that. You can't create that. That's unique. And there's so many elements to this place, between the walled garden and the pond and there's the basement. Forget about the basement. The basement is going to be amazing. We're going to restore the basement, which is going to have the wine cellar is epic down there. And that was like, I had no idea there was a basement, much less a wine cellar. So we're going to stock that baby up, and there'll be a gym down there and 2 bedrooms and a kitchen and a theater and a billiard room. Because Oakley Park always had a billiards room, and I like that. I like after dinner to go down, play a game of billiards, and smoke a good cigar. Oh yeah, it's the reality is I'm 57. I have the business and 70 employees. So, but Florida is amazing. The winter in Florida is amazing. But Ireland is amazing too. And everybody, for me, coming to Ireland and walking out there to a chill or frost or a misty, wet day or a blustery cold day is priceless. Everybody says, oh, when is the weather? I mean, people talk about the weather, oh, yeah, they're obsessed. I love it. I don't care. I love it if it's in the summer. I love the fall. I love the winter. I love the spring. I love the four seasons. And we don't have four seasons in Florida. We really have two. We have the monsoon of the summer where it's incredibly humid and hot and rains a lot, which is a good time to be out of Florida. But from November all the way through the winter to May, it's paradise. It's literally 75 degrees every day with a breeze off the ocean, and it's unbelievably good weather. It's incredible. But, I mean, ultimately, to be able to do both is the perfect deal. And Florida, of course, Palm Beach is truly unique in the entire United States. A little island, 14 miles long, half a mile wide at the widest point, with just 7,000 residents and 3 bridges onto the mainland. So we have amazing beach, restaurants, shopping, golf courses, and it's just it's a little paradise. My kids have been born and raised there. They think that's normal, but it's not normal. It's literally the playground of the rich and famous. So it's an interesting place to bring up kids, to bring up a family, which I always kind of was nervous about and struggled with. But getting into the outdoors and getting in scouts and camping and hunting and all that stuff, and then bring them to Ireland. We brought them to Ireland every Christmas to see Granny down at Ballinkill. And every summer they came. So they were at least twice a year. So they kind of grew up here too with all their cousins, and they have that childhood memory every year of being here in Ireland. So they're rooted here too, which is very important. Christina's dad is from Argentina. They speak Spanish. They go down there all the time, cousins there. And Leah, my mother-in-law, is from Abruzzo in Italy. So they have cousins in Italy. And so they have, I always say to them when Tommy was 5 years old, 6 years old, he went to school and they were doing where are you from, your background? And Tommy, the teacher told me when I went in to see her months later, she says, oh, Tommy was cute. He got up, he says, well, I'm 25% Italian, I'm 25% Argentino, I'm 50% Irish, and I'm all American. So when people ask me, I said, well, I was born in Ireland, but I was made in America. Yeah, well, my first 20 years was in Ireland. My last 37 years was in Florida, in America. And now we're beginning to do both. But I think it's really incredible what it means to have a place here and put roots down and really meet people. I mean, it's unbelievable, the characters and the interesting people and the fun people. It's truly unique. And I've been all over the world. I've imported and traveled and done business all over the world. There is no place like Ireland. There's no place with the depth of people and characters and fun, and it's amazing. I mean, you can meet the farmer who comes over with his tweed jacket, and he's got a couple of sheep and a couple of cattle, and he'll sit down there and tell you stuff that will just blow your mind. Well read, interesting life, really articulate, funny. And it's amazing. You see that in Ireland all the time. And when you have a place here, you really get, you get into it. You get deep into it, and you get your feet wet, and really meet these people. Like, we host the meat hunt every year. That's an epic day. We have the horses, and we have people here who board their horses, and we have the trainer. And today we had the farrier in, and he was shoeing the horses. And it's nonstop. And then we're doing the restoration. So the people we're meeting in the restoration, the architect, the different tradespeople, I mean, they're hilarious. They're such characters. I have so much fun talking to them. and learning and what they are doing, where they're from, what's their background. And they, once you ask a question, you open up the can and they give you, all kinds of interesting stories and whatnot. But the people, and a lot of people say, oh, you're taking on a project. I have to say, we have been so lucky. Everybody on our team, the architect, the engineer, the builder, all the trades have been superb. And I've heard a lot of people, oh, it's going to be difficult. Maybe we're lucky, but it's been a pleasure. I mean, we've had the best people, the best team, and we haven't had any drama or any headaches whatsoever. I know we're just getting started, but I think it'll be good because, I'm in that business too. That's what I do. Christine is an interior designer. She knows what she's doing. So we are a kind of a unique team taking on a project like this. Yeah, well, I blame my dad for that, Tommy Keogh. Dad would always say to me when it was a Thursday or a Friday, oh, there's whether it could be a hunt meet, or it could be a sale, or it could be a stallion, or it could be some reason to go see a place. And I would say, what's it like that? And he'd always say, oh, it's a fine Georgian place. He'd always say that. It's a fine, fine Georgian house or a fine Georgian place. So he dragged me along for whatever reason to visit or see these places. Sometimes it was a purpose, sometimes it was a hunt or a sale or whatever it was. And it really was the beginning of my appreciation for that style of architecture. And in my business, we create those homes. We do the architectural stonework, which is the definitive feature of a Georgian home. And then I've also, I'm on the board of directors for the American Georgian Society, and this is my third time down through the years. So we raise a lot of money in America to restore properties, buildings, a variety of things. We did the City Assembly building in Dublin. This is 15, 20 years ago. We raised the money for that, which is now the headquarters for the Georgian Society. But we raised all that money in Palm Beach in New York, year after year, took that building, gutted it, and put it all back together. And people can visit it. If you're in Dublin, you're welcome to go by, knock on the door, and get a tour of the City Assembly building. They have the hexagonal room, which is a exhibition, which was an exhibition room in the 1700s. So that building has incredible pedigree and history, and it's well worth seeing. This year we just finished the restoration and re-roofing of the dome on the Cork Cove Yacht Club, which is actually the oldest yacht club in the world, dating back to 1714, I think. And it's a art museum, an art building right now. But we just finished that. So we do these fun projects. And it brings Americans to Ireland. The Georgian Society is a great thing to join. You can literally join for $150. And you'll be invited to garden tours, house tours, different events all year. Everybody should be a member of the Georgian Society here in Ireland. And just go on irishgeorgiansociety.com and you can sign up. Hopefully I will have the whole project complete by then. I'll have the basement, the 1836 basement and the 1715 basement all restored. Hopefully I will have the steward's house restored, the coachman's house restored. And I have plans for the walled garden. I got work there. But really it's gonna be my home. This is gonna be my place, my piece of Ireland. I'm not gonna, I'm American. After 37 years, I'm American, but I'm still pretty Irish. And so for me, this is a dream. It's a dream. And it's funny, when my kids say, oh, this is what they call this, what's the word? When you think about something and then you make it a reality, it manifests itself. And that's what's happened here with this place. But I want to spend more time here in the summer, particularly in the summer. And I think if I can come 4 times a year, I'll be happy. but I still love America and I still love Palm Beach. So it's really the perfect combination. But to build Oakley Park and bring it back to how it was in its heyday, and its heyday really would have been, 1850-ish, 1880 was really its heyday, when all these houses, the basement was lived in. It was a different heyday. But we'll bring it back respectfully, architecturally, and and we're sensitive, because I want it. I don't want to bring in a modernism. I want it to have a fresh, today's, use and aesthetic and family, but I want to have that look and that sensibility and the history. And it's going to be really fun doing the coachman's house and the steward's house and all that. It's the process of doing this is so much fun for us. Like, Chris and I sit down in Palm Beach. I come home from work and we talk about, she's got her business, I got my business, and when we're done talking about that, it usually goes, okay, what happened at Oakley Park today? What did they get done today? Did they send you pictures? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like this, it's just, we have this other world and this other life and this other project going on across the Atlantic in Ireland. And it's really fun, it's enjoyable, and it's brilliant. But I'm lucky to have a wife. Christine is amazing because she embraces it and she loves it as much as I do. And she's American and Italian and Argentinian, but she loves Ireland and she loves the process here. And I think she really enjoys it here, and she loves the people here. And she feels really at home here. She feels really comfortable here. Maybe even more so than at home sometimes. She really enjoys it here, and it's great. I'm lucky.